I realize you guys haven't had a lot of time because of the slow start here with the getting the network going, but I want to go over these, see if the ones that you have done are going well at least, and then we'll pick up with our new stuff for today. So number one here, this is addition. Now remember, with addition and subtraction, we have to have the same name. That means common denominator. So 6 2/3 and 2 7/8 both have to be changed to a common denominator, which for the 3 and 8 is going to become 24. Turn the 3 into a 24, it's multiplied by 8. So we multiply the 2 by 8 to get 16 24ths. Turns the 8 into 24, it's multiplied by 3, so 7 times 3 is 21. Now we can go ahead and add 16 24ths plus 21 24ths. Remember, when we add or subtract, we combine the counts and we keep the same name. The denominator of this fraction is like the place value of that digit. So we keep the name of 24ths. We combine the count. 16 and 21 is 37. Now that is an improper fraction, which you can break down into 1 and 13 24ths. So we're going to keep the 13 24ths and carry the 1. 1 and 6 is 7, plus 2 is 9. 9 and 13 24ths. Any questions on that one? Okay, for number 2, we again need common denominator. Between 4 and 6, that's going to be a 12. Turn a 4 into a 12, we multiply by 3. So 1 has to be multiplied by 3 to give us 3 12ths. Turn the 6 into a 12, we multiply by 2. So 5 has to be multiplied by 2 to give us 10 12ths. And now we are subtracting, except 3 12ths minus 10 12ths can't be done. So we have to borrow from the 7. This becomes a 6. What do we add to the 3? We borrowed one whole object, but the 3 is pieces. We have to turn that whole object into pieces. The denominator of 12 tells us that that one whole object contains 12 pieces. So 3 plus 12 is 15 12ths now. Now we go to subtract. 15 minus 10 is 5 12ths. And 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 and 5 12ths. Any questions there? When we multiply and divide, we don't need the same name. So that means we don't need to worry about a common denominator. We can multiply and divide mixed numbers, but it's way easier to turn them into improper fractions. So that's what we're going to do. 2 and 2/5 becomes how many fifths?
11.
Careful. You have the right idea. 12. There we go. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12 fifths. And the 1 and 3/4 becomes how many fourths?
7 fourths.
7. Perfect. 7 fourths. Now here we can multiply, but we can actually, before we multiply, cross cancel, just like any other fraction. We see the 12 and 4 both can be divided by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Now we'll combine counts. 3 times 7 is 21. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 goes into 21 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. There's 1 left over. That is 4 and 1/5. Any questions there? Okay, number 4. Again, just like with multiplication, actually we're going to turn division into multiplication, so it makes sense that we start out with that same first step. 5 1/2 becomes how many halves? 11. There we go. Divided by 1 2/3 becomes how many thirds?
5.
5.
Oh.
So now, remember the first fraction, the first number does not change. The division, the operation, always operates on the number that comes after it. So instead of dividing by 5/3, we change it to multiplying by 3/5. And now we could cross cancel if there was anything that canceled out, but there is not. So we have 11 times 3 is 33. 2 times 5 is 10. 33 divided by 10. 10 goes into 33 3 times. 3 times 10 is 30. There's 3 left over. So this is 3 and 3/10. How many of you, just a little quick show of hands, had all 4 of those correct? Perfect. Is there anybody that has any questions or confusion on any of those? Okay. Now, for today, a couple of things we're going to work on. One, you'll notice quiz 2 is posted in Blackboard. It's in the week 2 folder. I believe it's the top item in the week 2 folder. That needs to be completed by noon tomorrow. And submitted. Now, there's a couple of people that have not finished quiz 1 yet. Make sure you get that done. I'm going to give you some leniency at the beginning of the semester, but normally late homework or late quizzes have a pretty stiff penalty for being late. I'm not going to take that right now because we're figuring out the system. But if you have questions on how to access quiz 1, it is sitting there in Blackboard in the week 1 folder. If you're not sure how to get to that, let me know and I will walk you through that so you can find that to make sure that gets done. I will let you guys out a little bit early today to give you time for that quiz so that you can guys get access to that somewhere and get that done. Okay, so today's project. I posted this worksheet on Blackboard so you can get to it if you want to. Resolution turned out to be really poor. I apologize for that. My home scanner is not nearly up to the quality of the one that we use at school. Those of you that are looking for quiz 1, by the way, course information over here on the left side and week 1 folder. Quiz 1 is sitting in there for you, right there. But anyway, the worksheet we're going to work on today here is in week 2, and there is a attachment here for today. Actually turned out way clearer than I thought for this. My printout looks pretty horrible. But what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at drill sizes. I am going to finagle this a little bit so it's a little easier to use. There. Let's get it rotated correctly here. Okay, so what we're looking at here is tool sizes or drill sizes, and specifically in this case. Oftentimes, you end up where you need a drill. You have two tools, and the size you need is right in between those two tools. So how do we get there? Well, most of us would know how to get to that if we were using tools that were integers or whole numbers in size. For example, I ended up with a new document. Oh well. For example, if I was using a 3-inch and a 5-inch tool, if I needed one right in between them, well, we know that all we would do is do 3 plus 5 and divide by 2. That would give us 8 over 2, or 4. In fact, most of us probably could have looked at 3-inch and 5-inch and picked out that 4 was right in between them. With fractions, of course, it's a little bit more work, but it's the exact same process. To find the tool that is halfway between a 7/32 and a 1/4 inch, we have to add those together. Do it over here. 7/32 and 1/4 to add, we have to have that common denominator, which is going to be 30 seconds. 4 times 8 makes 32, so we do 1 times 8 to make 8. Then we add those. 7/32 plus 8/32 is 15/32. That's the total we still have to divide by 2. If I'm going to take 15/32, divide by 2. Well, we haven't talked about this much. How do we divide a fraction by a whole number? Well, we make that whole number into a fraction by simply putting it over 1. And then we change it to multiplying by that reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 2 over 1, we multiply by 1 over 2. So 15 times 1 is 15, 32 times 2 is 64. So the tool that is exactly between 7/32 and 1/4 is 15/64. So that would be the tool that we would need to look for. Or if we have to order a tool, that would be the one that would be exactly between those two sizes. Let's do one more together here, and then I'll turn you guys loose to try the last few here. So between 5/8 and 3/4. So we have 5/8 and 3/4. We're going to add those together. Common denominator is going to be 8. So we keep the 5/8. 3/4 turns into 6/8. So we add those to get 11/8. Now we have to divide that by 2, which turns out to be multiplying by 1/2. So 11 times 1 is 11, 8 times 2 is 16. So 11/16 is the tool that is directly between those two. Any questions on that process? Okay, so there's 8 more up there. I'm going to have you guys do those 8. We'll talk about them in a few minutes. A few of you are done and a few of you are still working. And that's okay. Let's see if the ones that you have done are done correctly here. So number 2 up here, we're going to add 9/32 and 5/16. We add those to get 19/32. Divide by 2 to get 19/64 is the size in between them. Number 4, we had 3/8 and 1/2 will give us 7/8. Divided by 2 is 7/16 is the size that's in between those. Any questions so far? Okay, number 5. We're going to add 1/2 and 3/4 to get 5/4. Divided by 2 is 5/8. Number 6, 1/16 and 1/8 add to make 3/16. Divided by 2 is 3/32. 7, 11/16 and 3/4 are going to make 23/16. Divided by 2 is 30 seconds. 23/32. Number 8, 3/32 and 1/16 are going to add to make 5/32. Divided by 2 is 5/64. Number 9, 25/32 and 13/16 add to make 51/32. Divided by 2 is 51/64. And finally, number 10, 15/32 plus 1/2 is 31/32. Divided by 2 is 31/64. Any questions? So the next process, wrong mouse. The next process we're looking at is finding the next size up and the next size down. Copy a little bit of this here, it over. Okay, so we're assuming that we have tools that go to the 64th of an inch. So that we have everything from 1/64th up to 64/64. So if we have a tool that is 5/32 of an inch, the next size larger is 5/32 plus a 64th. Well, in order to add those, we have to have common denominators. That common denominator will be 64. 5/32, well, 32 times 2 makes 64. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. 64ths would be the next size larger. Well, the next size smaller is actually quite a bit easier to do once we've already done that. The next size smaller is 5/32 minus a 64th. But we have already done the common denominator. We know the common denominator is 64, and we know that 5/32 is 10/64. So all we're doing here is subtracting. 10 minus 1 is going to be 9/64 to get the next size smaller. And of course, we should label those inches, but I'm not going to be picky about that. So here, 3/16, let's do the same thing there. 3/16 plus a 64th. We have to change that 16ths into 64ths. That's going to be times 4, so 12/64. Plus 1/64 will give us 13/64 for the next size larger. For the next size smaller, it's that 3/16 or 12/64 again, minus 1/64. 12 minus 1 is 11/64 of an inch is our next size smaller. So I'm going to have you guys help me out with this next one. 31/32 plus a 64th. I'll leave the 1/64th. 31/32. How many 64ths is that? "32 times 2 is 64. 31 times 2 is
62.
62. Thank you. So now we add 62 plus 1 is 63/64. That would be the next size bigger. For the next size smaller, we have the 31/32 minus a 64th. So that's still 62/64 minus a 64th, which gives us how much? "62 minus 1 is 61/64. Any question on that process? Okay, so we have a handful here for you to work on. There they are. I'm just going to have you do the top 5 of these here. I'll get my inking out of the way here in just a second. For 9/32, 5/8, all those 5, 14 through 18, tell me what is the next size smaller and what is the next size larger. Or first is the next size larger, I should say, and then the next size smaller for each of those tools. It won't erase my inking. Oh well. We'll make do. There we go. Yeah, I see a few of you are done. A couple of you are still working, and that's okay. Now, before we go through these, just want to let you in on the point of why I'm doing this. Yeah, it is important to be able to adjust tool sizes, but more important is to notice patterns. Math is really all about patterns. That's kind of what my whole theme of the first week was the different patterns that are consistent from one form of another to another. These tasks here, especially this one, lend themselves to a pattern that shortens the process a lot. So here, to find the next size bigger and the next size smaller, the pattern is really just to convert each of these into 64ths and then add one for the next size bigger and subtract one from the numerator for the next size smaller. So 9/32 is 18/64. So one larger would be 18 plus 1 or 19/64. And one smaller would be 18 minus 1 or 17/64. And so by finding that pattern, you can save a lot of work over having to add a 64th and subtract a 64th. 5/8 is 64ths would be 40/64. So one larger is 41/64. One smaller is 39/64. 1/8 is 8/64. So then larger would be 9/64 and smaller would be 7/64. 3/4 is how many 64? So it's 4 times 16. So 3 times 16 is 48. So the next larger size is 49/64. Next smaller is 47/64. And finally, 1/16 is 4/64. So the next size up is 5 64ths. Next size down is 3 64ths. Any questions there? Okay, so as I said, I wanted to give you time to work on that quiz. There is no homework. Doesn't happen very often, but we'll give you an easy one today. Make sure you have quiz 2. And if you haven't done quiz 1, make sure you get quiz 1 completed and turned in to me, hopefully today. Quiz 2 needs to be turned in by noon tomorrow. So I'll let you guys have this last one. You asked me to make sure I give you a little bit more time at the end of class to make sure that you can wipe down your table and be out of the room before the next class comes in. You want to try to avoid cross-contaminating as much as possible. So we'll let you go clean up your spot and work on this quiz somewhere.